Welcome to the traffic control module of the 7 Habits of Highly Successful Internet Marketers. In this module, we're going to explore basically what is the lifeblood of any internet marketing business. Traffic. You need people to be visiting your site in order to make money, and as a general rule, the more people you have visiting, then the more money you're going to make. So, let's have a look at the different traffic types, and first of all, the importance of understanding different traffic types. So, for example, different sources of traffic provide different types of traffic for you. And different quality of visitor. It's important to understand each of these different elements and different methods of producing traffic because they will have a different effect on your business. For example, if you want instant traffic that you can use in order to test your business, then pay-per-click is a good way of doing that. Doing list building or viral marketing is less good because it takes more time and requires more effort on your part. It's not as instantaneous, and we'll look at that a little bit later on. It's good to understand the effects of different types of traffic as well, whether it's short-term or long-term. For example, running a pay-per-click campaign for just a couple of weeks is short-term traffic and will only tell you a certain amount of information and only give you a certain amount of income in terms of the people visiting your site. Whereas if you build a list, that's a long-term project. It won't show results in the first week or even the first month, maybe even in the first year, but you will see results later on down the line because it's a long-term strategy. So it's good to understand that you need both of those in order to succeed, both short and long-term. It's also important to constantly be planting seeds for traffic, so to be constantly communicating with other people, whether it be through forums or whether it be through article marketing, blogging. Any of those things are good methods of planting seeds for later on down the line. You could direct people to an offer, you could direct people to your blog, you could direct people to a source of information that helps them out. And the more you do that, the more value you provide, and the more value you provide for more people, the bigger your list will become, and the more you'll be able to use that as your source of income. Viral marketing is a fantastic way to build traffic. Many people don't understand it, so let's explore it very, very briefly just here. Viral marketing is there to create, well, primarily to create intrigue and to create people visiting your site, of course. And the intrigue is created because you've done something perhaps unusual, or perhaps very funny, or perhaps that's just mind-blowing in that it maybe gives massive amounts of value for free. Perhaps it's a video which is controversial. It could be a number of things. For example, the internet marketer Dean Hunt has produced a couple of different videos, one of which is titled Hitler Hates Dean Hunt. And yes, before you ask, that is the Hitler, that's Adolf Hitler. As a result, what he's done is he's taken a clip from a German language film and he has translated it, or he's put the subtitles in, if you like, and instead of using the subtitles that are in the film, he's taken those out, and instead he's put a copy of his own translation, if you like, onto the bottom of those words being said by the guy playing Hitler in the film. And it's a particularly pivotal scene from the film where Hitler is basically having a meltdown and shouting at all of his generals. But what Dean has done is he's turned around and made it all about himself. So Hitler appears to be talking about Dean Hunt and saying to his generals, how could we possibly let this happen? How could Dean have brought out all of these fantastic marketing tools? We're never going to be able to compete with this. And it's very funny because you wouldn't have thought Hitler would be talking about a guy who, was born after Hitler died. It's kind of funny as well because obviously we all know that's not really what he's saying. We know that if we translated it properly, that's not what would come out. But initially it looks very funny, and it looks like it's the sort of thing that may be legitimate for at least a couple of seconds before you realise what's actually happened. But by creating that, and by creating kind of funny subtitles around his product, Dean has created something viral, which is something that people can pass on, and people on his list will pass on to their friends because it's kind of funny, and it makes for people to connect with Dean in a very different way. There's also things like Simon's Cat, for example, on YouTube. If you have a look for the word Simon's Cat on YouTube, I highly recommend it. It's very, very funny indeed. It's basically a series of cartoons which have had millions and millions and millions of views on YouTube, purely because they've made people laugh, and they've made people laugh with something that's unique and a bit different, and something that is also very truthful to anybody who's ever owned a cat, because they'll be able to identify with Simon's cat and the way he behaves. It's something that, as a result, has gone viral throughout YouTube and has created a massive connection with people. And interestingly, I've put there about emotional connections because it's provoked a reaction, and that's the strongest reaction you can get from someone, is an emotional one. Perhaps you've said something that's made people outraged, and so they've passed it on and said, "What do you think of this person? This has really annoyed me. What do you think?" By doing that, you've created some dialogue. Now, of course, it's important to stay ethical and moral when you're doing that. So don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Actually have a good point. If you disagree with something that's gone on recently in the news, for example, you could always disagree with that, as long as your views are not extreme in the sense of being racist or being homophobic or anything like that. Then there's a good chance people will take on board your point, and some people will agree with you and some people won't. Either way, you'll start a debate, and by being the person at the centre of the debate, then you will again have a very powerful way of connecting with people. It's also good to create multiple ways of getting visitors back to you, back to your website. So if you were to create, for example, let's say a blog or an audio or a video, you could actually create one of each of those things and have different methods of getting there. So for example, you could do a press release all about the video that you've produced, and that video could be talking about your blog, and all of those things could all link up so that one leads to another, which leads to another. By doing that, you're creating a sort of a circle, if you like, of traffic. So people who find the video will go to the blog, which will then take them to perhaps an article, or the article will take them to the blog, which will have a copy of the video on it. It's just a way of linking all of these different services up, like, for example, linking YouTube or Vidler or any of those video providers with your articles that you've got on easyinarticles.com, which in turn can also appear on your blog at yourdomain.com. Either way, it's a way in which you can create a viral method of marketing your information, and people will then want to pass that information on, presuming that it's good quality information. It's not inflammatory for the sake of being inflammatory. It's actually making a good point, and that's important. It's important also to be list building, and traffic control is, well, the key part of traffic control is list building. You should be building an asset for long-term traffic all the time. Any method you can to get people within your market to get onto your mailing list is a good thing. Obviously, you should be doing it again in an ethical fashion. So a good way of doing it that's used in internet marketing an awful lot is to create a free product for people, to create a really good gift which will make people want to come back to your website, and which perhaps contains links to your website as well. So as they're reading, they can be linked to specific blog posts, for example, on your blog, or specific pages on your website which sell them a product. As a result of doing all of that, you get this asset that builds up, which is also based on relationships, because while you're building the asset, you're also building a relationship with the people on that list, the people who are that asset. If you have a list of, let's say, 10,000 people, all of whom you have a connection with because of your list, because you provided them with great information, and because occasionally you've sent them offers to some really great deals, they will appreciate that, and they will feel almost indebted to you. It's a principle called reciprocity, which Robert Cialdini has spoken about in a couple of different books, including the book Influence. And in that book he talks about how reciprocity is a very powerful thing, because it's the idea that if you give somebody something of great value, they feel indebted to you and they feel like they need to give something back to you. It's one of the principles of marketing, and as a result you can do that with your list. You can create fantastic value for them and give them something amazing for free, and if you do that, they will feel like perhaps they should open your emails more regularly, or perhaps they should visit your website, or perhaps it's only fair if they give you $7 or $8 for that ebook, or they give you $20 for the upsell, or whatever. It can be a number of different things, but by creating that relationship you are building an asset for the future. It's also a good idea when you're list building to make sure that you segregate your buyers into buyers and prospects. So people who have bought from you should be on a different list to the ones who are just prospects, so that you can send specific information to the prospects to try and get them to become buyers, and for those who already are buyers, you can treat them a bit differently. Obviously the ones you will treat a little bit more respectfully, if you like, are the buyers. Obviously you're going to be respectful to your list no matter who they are. That's a very important thing, but you're going to make sure that you give your buyers a bit more attention perhaps, or at least give them a bit more value so that you can encourage them to buy from you again. Because if they bought from you once, there's a good chance they will buy from you again. We all know that part of internet marketing is that you get lots of people looking for freebies, and so if they're on a different list, then you can segregate the people who just want free stuff to the people who are actually going to prepare to buy it from you, and as a result you have a much more effective business model. Joint ventures are perhaps the very best method of controlling traffic, if you like, online. By doing joint ventures, first of all you need a list or some sort of asset that you can trade off with the joint venture partner. So if you don't have a list, it can be your time. You could be the person who says, I'm going to create the product for you, I'm going to do all of the work, and all you have to do is either endorse it or send it to your list. And by doing that, it's no risk for them, because you've created something of great value for their list, and if it sells, they make money. If it doesn't, they don't lose anything. So that could be a way in which you could start with joint ventures. You don't necessarily have to have a list. If you do have a list, of course, that's a much more powerful proposition. Let's say you have a list of 10,000 people. You go to somebody else with a list of 10,000 people who's also in your niche, and you suggest that you swap traffic. So you create what's known as a win-win-win deal. The reason it's got the extra win in there is because the joint venture partner wins, you win, and your people who you're marketing to also win. Nobody actually gets left out. They perhaps get to find out some information they didn't know before. The people who are buying from you, that is. The people who you're doing the joint venture with get some more people on their list, some more traffic. They get to build their asset, and you get to build your asset by doing the same thing, or by creating a product that has your name on it. Either way, you're creating value for people, and that's really the fundamental principle. As we looked at in the first video, that's the fundamental principle of internet marketing, is to provide as much value as you can for your particular market. Joint ventures are by far the most powerful way of driving traffic, because it doesn't cost you anything. Once you've got that asset built, you can use that asset to create fantastic value for yourself, fantastic value for other internet marketers, and fantastic value for the people who are fortunate enough to be on your list as well. It provides massive, massive leverage doing joint ventures, and the leverage comes in several forms. We've already looked at using time. So if you have a lot of time on your hands but not necessarily very much money or expertise, then you can use that time to do the research that you need to get the expertise, or you can interview experts and create a product as a result of that. If you have lots of money, then you can use that money as leverage to create relationships with people by saying that you will have a product built for somebody, and all they have to do is promote it, or all they have to do is send it to their list. Assuming that you've created something that's of value, then that shouldn't be a problem, and you should be able to create a business very quickly as a result of that. Finally, pay-per-click is a very good way of creating instant traffic for testing. I say instant, it usually takes an hour or two to get adverts put through on Google AdWords. And if you can do that, then it's a very good way of driving a lot of traffic in a very short space of time. The downside of it, of course, is that you have to have the money to do it in the first place. And if you have a good knowledge of AdWords, then it will save you a lot of money, because AdWords can be a very difficult beast to conquer unless you have that knowledge. So perhaps you might want to leverage some of your time in order to get the expertise you need, and then you can start using pay-per-click in the most effective way possible. There are people out there who are experts in this already, people who actually worked for Google, people like Brittany Lynch, who is an expert in Google AdWords, having worked for Google AdWords for a long period of time, and she's now helping a lot of very big name internet marketers with their own campaigns, with all the different methods that Google uses to ensure that people get cheap clicks or not. You could be paying up to 700% more than somebody who isn't doing it properly. Who is doing it properly rather, if you aren't doing it correctly. If you're not putting your AdWords together, your AdWords campaigns together properly, then you could be paying up to 600 or 700% more than somebody who is putting their campaign together properly. So it's worth learning these skills. Copywriting is also an important skill when it comes to pay-per-click, because you need to make sure as many people click that advert as possible, and as many people who are qualified to click that ad as possible click it, rather than just anybody. If your advert's being displayed, for example, if you've got a product about back pain, for example, and your ad is being displayed on searches for medicine or searches for something that's not related, you're going to lose an awful lot of money very, very quickly, because you're going to find people are clicking on it who are not qualified to click on it. So copywriting is another part of it, where you want to make sure that people who are clicking on your advert are doing so who are qualified, who are people who want that information, rather than just people who are clicking on it for the sake of it. It's a very good idea with pay-per-click to study one system, get good at it, and try another. And that principle could be applied to all internet marketing. You study one system, get very good at it, and only then do you try another. Most people study one system and start applying it, and then they go and try another one immediately before they get good at it. And that's one of the reasons that many people fail at internet marketing, is because they don't become specialists, they don't become good at one thing. There are people out there who are experts at article marketing, there are people who are experts at using pay-per-click, there are people who are experts at joint ventures. All of these people are out there and they all exist, and you can leverage their abilities, but you need your own skill set as well in order to be able to make the systems work for you. In the case of pay-per-click, one system might be Google AdWords, another one might be advertising on Yahoo, another one might be advertising using Bing, or perhaps the CPA networks, for example. You could be using the cost per action networks instead of the pay-per-click adverts. And if you do that, that's another system, and you need to make sure that you get good at it before you move on to try another one. So that's traffic control. If you harness at least 2 or 3 of these different methods of getting traffic, you'll find that your business will increase exponentially with the value that you provide for them. So that's traffic control. We'll move on and we'll look at the next habits of highly successful internet marketers.